What's up guys, it's Manga time once again. I'm here to bring you my review of Bleach 631 Friend. What a chapter. Like, I always knew I was going to like this chapter. I didn't realize I was going to like it this much. The flashback is really quite good, and the setup for next week is incredibly exciting actually. I think I might do a live reaction next week just because I think it's the flashback we've all been waiting for next week. I think it's the start of the flashback we've all been waiting for, but like I said, I'll get into that in a bit. So it starts off with Bazz-B and Haschwalth continuing their fight, and I was like, oh, come on, surely he's not going to chip us of the flashback. He's not going to do a Kugo Tsukushima thing. And basically, Bazz-B swipes with his burner finger too, and Haschwalth jumps out of the way, and Bazz-B's attacks like flying. Actually, I think Haschwalth is like running across the roof, which is pretty crazy because there's like lots of dust. Implying that Haschwalth is like jumping across the roof, which is mental. So he's like leapt over Bazz-B's head, and he kind of begins to aim his sword at Bazz-B. Bazz-B, however, pulls out his crossbow and aims it at Haschwalth, and then we transition into the flashback. And I was like, okay, here we go. So it starts off with a bow and arrow. Well, it starts off with an arrow kind of flying through the air. It's like a really rudimentary arrow. And it just misses this rabbit, and Haschwalth is there. We only get to see him from the back to start with, however, he has like really short hair, it's like down to here. And he unfortunately, he misses this rabbit, and he's like, oh, damn it. And the rabbit starts to run away. As it runs away, this reishi arrow shoots straight through it, and it pierces the rabbit and, presumably kills it. And this person's like, what the hell are you doing? You suck. And, Jugram turns around, and he sees Bazz-B as a child. And he's wearing, like, this Viking kind of attire with like loads of little bees on it, and he has his Quincy bow already, which is pretty impressive actually. He's got his black gloves on as well. He looks cute, and he's got the whole the plume thing on the Viking helmet going on, which is a really nice allusion to the fact that he eventually has a mohawk. And he's like, hey. Oh no, basically Haschwalth turns around, he's like, who are you? And Bazz-B's like, why should I, the great Bazz-B, tell you my name first? You introduce yourself first. And obviously he's already introduced himself, so Haschwalth's like, oh, so you call Baz. And Haschwalth looks like Haschwalth, but a baby. And he's like really kind of placid and like emotionless, and he kind of reminds me of Ulquiorra, except not as emotionless. But anyway, I think, this is supposed to be 1,000 years ago, but we'll get into that in a bit as well. So basically, Haschwalth introduces himself, and the artwork in this chapter is really good. In every single flashback, Kubo always seems to like put loads of background in, presumably to help with context. And this chapter is no different. The flashback is really, really well drawn. And so basically, he's like, to think that you managed to trick me into introducing myself first. That's very clever. And Haschwalth's got this little quiver of arrows on his back, and it's really kind of a nice allusion to the fact that they're Quincy's. That he's actually using arrows. But it's impressive that Bazz-B's already got his Quincy bow, considering how young they are. But anyway, so basically Bazz-B's like, I thought I'd come and watch over you because you don't seem to be able to hunt anything. And the fact that they have to hunt, presumably for food, is also indicative of the fact that this is 1,000 years ago. But like I said, the 1,000 years ago thing I will get into later because that's quite a big deal. But anyway, Haschwalth's like, oh, you're right, compared to someone like you, I can't even create my own Heilig Bogen yet, which I believe is Holy Bow. And, Haschwalth's like, I'm a total lame ass indeed. And Haschwalth, like, takes everything, not to heart necessarily, but he seems to be very passive, and he's letting Bazz-B walk all over him. And so Bazz-B's like, Jugo, you idiot, presumably the first time he's ever called him Jugo, since this is the first time they've met. And, Bazz-B's like, I'm a genius, that's why I can do well, you're not even that lame. And it's quite funny. It is funny that Haschwalth ends up being the superior here. But, basically Bazz-B's like, look at this, no one else could make this at my age. And he then says something interesting. He says, I'm sure you can agree with me if you look at those around you, right? Presumably meaning all the other Quincy in the area. And Haschwalth's like, I guess I never bothered finding out, implying that Haschwalth's a loner and doesn't bother talking to any of his peers. And then, Bazz-B's kind of like shocked to this. And then he says, could you stop calling me Jugo? I don't like it, which is interesting as well. Especially since Bazz-B calls it in the present day. And then Bazz-B's like, okay, so what do your parents call you then? And Haschwalth's like, I don't have parents, I live with my uncle now. And then Bazz-B says, what does your uncle call you? And Haschwalth says, it doesn't even matter, you don't have to know. And all of this is quite important, I think, to Haschwalth's character. Haschwalth then says, please leave, I have to hunt at least one rabbit, and Bazz-B throws him the rabbit. And he's like, I didn't need to hunt that rabbit, I just did it to show off. So Bazz-B's clearly implying that Quincy's have to hunt for food. Bazz-B then takes off he's wearing a little cape, and he takes off this little clasp. And I'm definitely wondering where the hell he's managed to get all this Bazz-B merchandise from. This officially licensed Bazz-B merchandise he's got. I don't know where he got that from, but he tosses it to Haschwalth. He's like, Jugo, you're going to be my underling starting from today. And then he says, let's be the strongest Quincy's around. And, Haschwalth seems to be genuinely happy that Bazz-B's done this. As Bazz-B runs away, Haschwalth's uncle turns up. And this is an interesting thing. His uncle calls him Jugo, and Haschwalth hates that name. And this guy seems to be, a bit predatory. Might be a bit of a strong word, but, he's like, you're someone that cannot survive without me. Am I right, my cute little Jugo? And the way Haschwalth looks at him is very telling. He's got the bags under his eyes, which implies, distress, unhappiness, and presumably, this is just a theory, but maybe Haschwalth's uncle is not so great to him. And it's, left Haschwalth not necessarily emotionless, but a bit, maybe emotionless, a bit cold. But anyway, Bazz-B is then seen running towards this huge Quincy-style castle, curiously without any ice on it, which I think is interesting. I think I have an idea why there's ice now, but I'll get into that in a minute as well. We then go back to the present very quickly, and Bazz-B shoots a hole through the wall, and he says, Varvel, was it? What happened to Silburn? Why'd you change the name? And he's like, you're going to tell me that I don't need to know again? That was always your favourite excuse. And Haschwalth's like, let's take this outside. I can't afford to damage the castle any further. And this pisses Bazz-B off. And he's like, what the hell? And he does Burner Finger 3 in a really cool panel. Haschwalth then begins to aim his sword at Bazz-B, and we return to the flashback, which is something I was very happy about. This is when things get very interesting. Bazz-B is now doing it from Bazz-B's point of view, and he says, half a year after I met Jugo, the small village I lived in with my family was burned to the ground, presumably meaning his family was killed. And it was Yhwach that did it, and we see Yhwach from the back, and he's riding a horse, again alluding to the fact this is, 1,000 years ago. He took over the northern lands so suddenly, not with his arrows, but with that weird power of his. Okay, so this is the human world, and Yhwach is on a world conquest by the looks of things. Now, this is presumably Bazz-B talking about just the legends. He's like, all that crap about him living for 200 years and being the first Quincy, I give a damn. We then get to see Bazz-B, and he's like, let's kill Yhwach, Jugo, because, he killed his parents. And this is very reminiscent of Geen. But honestly, I might get some flack for this, but I think this has been done better than Geen so far. His actual story about redemption. And, Jugo's like, I have to go as well. And Bazz-B's like, he burned your forest down. But if you're okay with that, then go ahead, go live with him somewhere far away from here. Which is what happens, funnily enough. Jugo then says rather nonchalantly, my uncle died in that fire too. Bazz-B's reaction, to me, implies maybe Haschwalth killed him and he's covering it up. Or that Haschwalth is happy that his uncle died by Yhwach's hand. And therefore he has no reason to feel, feel anything feel any ire towards Yhwach. Either way, I think Bazz-B realises that Haschwalth doesn't necessarily agree with him 100%. However, apparently after that they lived on money that they found from the burnt down palace, and possibly that castle Bazz-B lived in, so maybe his family were like royalty of some kind, which is interesting, and they vowed to kill Yhwach, training as hard as they possibly could. They understood that they had to get close to Yhwach to kill him. And it starts to snow. And, 5 years have passed since they were kids. So now they're presumably teenagers. We haven't seen them again from here on out. We actually go to Yhwach. And Zeidritz is here, which is really cool. Because we've never seen Zeidritz properly. But he was one of the skeletons that was raised against Roidloid by Yamamoto. And it appears that Zeidritz is Yhwach's right-hand guy. And it's not in this translation, but apparently, according to someone on the forum, Zeidritz refers to their country as Lightreich, which means, Lichtreich, sorry, which means, Light Empire or something like that. But, or Kingdom of Light or something, which is interesting because they eventually become the Shadows. But anyway, Zeidritz is talking to Yhwach, and Yhwach apparently requests they build a new army, and Zeidritz is like, a new army? Why? We've almost conquered every single country available. I fear there might not be any need for a new army. And it's interesting that Yhwach has this complete lust for domination. At least 1,000 years ago, he ruled the entire world. And now this is getting really interesting to me, because it implies that Yhwach was on this hell-bent quest to rule everything until Yamamoto stopped him. And it's thanks to Yamamoto defeating him that the human world was freed. But we don't know that much yet. So anyway, Yhwach's like, you're making a mistake, Zedrich. There's not just countries. What about the Soul Society? We still need to rule that. And Zedrich is like, what? And Yhwach's like, to defeat them, we need a new kind of power. And he turns around to face us, and we see that he looks like Zangetsu. Like, I'm not sure if it's necessarily 1,000 years ago, or if it's a tiny bit later than that, but he definitely looks more like Zangetsu than he does Yhwach, in my opinion. He hasn't got bags under his eyes yet. He hasn't got, obviously, the full-blown moustache. His hair is nowhere near as long. He looks more like Zangetsu than he does Yhwach, in my opinion. However, he then says this army will be called the Sternritter, and that's the end of the chapter. Whoa! Like, oh crap, we're going to get the Sternritter flashback that literally we've all been waiting for so long, and I've been saying for weeks on end that we needed this flashback, and it might finally be here. Anyway, I want to address the 1,000-year thing first. It's possibly 1,000 years ago because Yhwach looks like Zangetsu. Bazz-B and Haschwalth are having to hunt for food, and they all seem to live in castles. However, some things don't seem to quite fit with this, in my opinion. The fact that, Bazz-B's got like this kind of gear on, and the fact that, Yhwach's men are all wearing proper military uniforms. But I suppose that could just be because this is a made-up world. So it's very interesting. This could be 1,000 years ago. So then, why is it that Bazz-B and Haschwalth are not that old in the present day? And I think that all has something to do with the ice. I don't know how, but somehow the Quincy fell into stasis. Possibly because everyone is tied to Yhwach in terms of their blood. When Yhwach was sealed, the Quincy was sealed as well, at least in time. And that was when the ice formed. Or at least the ice came around then anyway. And so the ice, symbolises the freezing of time. Possibly. Because, Yhwach was sealed for about 1,000 years, and now he came about again. They've all been freed again. And that's why they haven't aged. Because Haschwalth and Bazz-B, I could buy them being about maybe 30-odd. Late 20s to 30s. In terms of their appearance. And that could possibly... it depends how far this little flashback goes now. If it goes about 10 years from now, I could definitely buy that. Because we've already skipped 5 years ahead. And Yhwach's just about to start the Sternritter. So that's pretty crazy. And I tell you what, I'm really excited for next week. If we get to see more Sternritter, that'd be so freaking cool. Robert Acatrone should be around this point. As an actual member of Yhwach's army. So I'd love to see more members of the Sternritter in flashbacks, Kangdu, Asnot, all that lot. That'd be so great. Giselle, Lil Toto, presumably they'll get flashbacks. But so far, Kubo's done a bang-up job with this flashback. It's really making us feel for Bazz-B and Haschwalth, creating an extra layer of depth to their character. Is Haschwalth actually on Bazz-B's side at this point, or is he just kind of going with him anyway? Because, of course, if Haschwalth did hate his uncle, then he probably wouldn't have anything to hold against Yhwach. So... But I'm really excited, in case you can't tell. I think we're going to see Yhwach's attempted conquest of the world and Soul Society. And Yamamoto's going to stand up against him. And we might see the first divisions of the Gotei 13. Holy crap. This could be crazy good, man. The thing is, next week is the start of Volume 70. So this could be a volume-long, turn back the pendulum style thing. Which we've all been waiting for. So yeah, really excited about that. So I'm going to give this chapter a 10 out of 10. In my opinion, it deserves it. It's the flashback was part of the flashback we've been waiting for, so I can't really justify giving it anything else, to be honest. The artwork, absolutely superb. Haschwalth and Bazz-B look great as little kids. They look, they look like themselves, but also, they do look different enough. And Yhwach's looking like a total badass. I'm really excited that Kubo's gone down the route of seeing Yhwach conquer the world. Very exciting to see the origins of Vandenreich, and I can't wait for next week. So let me know, guys, in the comments below, what did you think of this chapter? Did you like the flashback? Has it made you think differently about Bazz-B and Haschwalth's characters? Bazz-B's a bit more of a tragic Geen-style character than I was expecting, especially since he was kind of portrayed as a bit of a nutter towards the beginning of his character arc. But yeah, I'm really excited. It's going to be really interesting to see why Haschwalth eventually transgressed higher than Bazz-B in terms of the Phantom ranks. I'm not necessarily expecting a betrayal between them, but I can imagine that Haschwalth did something to get closer to Yhwach than Bazz-B did. I also think it's interesting that Yhwach calls Haschwalth his first son, despite the fact that there's very clearly Quincy around Yhwach before Haschwalth, because Bazz-B even says that he knows that Yhwach had arrows. So, I don't know. We'll see. Let me know in the comments below, guys, what you thought. And as always, please subscribe to my videos. I'd really appreciate it. And give the video a thumbs up and share it with your friends. That'd be so great. Let's try and get some more views in here. I'd super appreciate your support. But thanks a lot, guys. And I'll catch you next time. See ya.